Hello everyone. So today I'll explain very interesting topic like task versus macro task queue. So in this explaining the versus macro task queue in JavaScript, it is helps also like clarify how the event loop manages different kinds of asynchronous operations. Okay. So before this, we will learn like what is the event loop. Event loop. So the event loop in JavaScript is single-threaded and uses an event loop to handle asynchronous tasks. The event loop continuously checks if the call stack is empty and then process tasks from the task queue. JavaScript is single-threaded and uses an event loop to handle asynchronous tasks. Task. And the event loop continuously checks ECK checks if the call stack is empty empty and then processes tasks from the task queues. Please. Okay, so there are mainly two types of task queue. First is like I already tell like micro task queue and macro task queue. And we can say like in macro task queue or like callback queue also. Okay, so in that micro task queue, it is content task like micro task queue. It is content first of all like promise.then, promise.catch and promise.finally. Promise.then, promise.catch and then promise.finally. Promise.finally. So and then queue microtask also like in queue queue microtask and then mutation observer. Okay, basically in mutation observer it is run in browser and it is run for like immediately after the current execution step before any macro task. Okay, and now I will tell about macro task queue. Macro task queue. In that, like it is content task like set timeout, and then set interval, and then set immediate, and then request animation frame. Request animation frame, and then simply input or output events, inputs or like outputs, events, and it is run after the current stack and after microtask complete. Okay, so now like in my previous video, I already explained what is promise and then dot, then catch finally. So I'll explain like what is queue, microtask, and mutation observer here. Okay, so queue microtask. Queue. So queue microtask is like a JavaScript APIs that allow to like schedule function to run at the end of the current execution and after the current call stack, but before the next macro task. Okay, and then next is mutation observer. So the mutation observer, like mutation observer is a built-in browser like API that lets you watch like for changes to the DOM document object model. I will like tell about later in like document object model, such as when elements are added, removed, or modified, and it is useful when we want to like react DOM update without using set interval or manual polling. Okay, so that is the meaning of mutation observer. Okay, so in that macro task queue, as you know, like set timeout, like I already explained, and set interval and set immediate. I'll explain set immediate. So basically, set immediate is like in JS, it is like in Node.js only. In set immediate is the Node.js specific function. It's not available in any browser that execute a callback after the current poll phase of the event loop, making it a macro task like set timeout. Okay, so that is the set immediate. And next is request animation frame. Request animation frame. So request animation frame is like it's for it is a method used to schedule a function to run right, and it is like before the next browser event, and it is ideal for smooth animations and UI updates. So that is the request animation frame. Next is like input output events. So input, it's like changes or submit or click events in JavaScript, and these are some of the most commonly used UI interaction events. Okay, so input is a like fired immediately when the value as input field changes, work with like input text area, etc., and it is useful for live updates or validation and change. Like in event is like fired after the element loses focus and the value has changed, work with input select text area. And submit, it's a event like fired when form is submitted, can be used to prevent default page reload using. Okay, and click also like event, like fired when an element is clicked, used with button like links, divs, etc. So these are the microtask queues. So after that, I will explain in like in code how it's work like in microtask queue. I'm just explaining one example to show the difference of this. Okay, so online JS compilers, not online JS compilers. So in that, suppose let's say we can write console.log, let's say 1, and then I put set timeout, and then arrow function, and then console.log, like let's say 2, and then set timeout, and let's suppose like I will write in macro stack for understanding macro task, and then it will run in 0, and then promise dot resolve, as I already explained my previous video in promise, so you can go and then watch what is promise, and then console dot log, let's say 3, and then Promise.then Microtask. It is Microtask. Okay. And then next is Q Microtask. Micro, and then arrow function console.log, that's a 4, pro task, and then micro task. And after this we will write console.log, let's say 5. Now we will see output, and then I'll explain what is the happening here. Okay, so first we will got 1. Oh, I just spelling mistake of console, that's why it's giving error. Oh, check. See, console. Now it will run. See, 1, first run 1, then 5, then 3, like promise.then, and then run 4, and then 2. Okay, first 1, then 5, then 3, then 4, and then 2. So I'll explain the code, what is happening here in this. Like first of all, in first line number 1, it is console.log 1, so it will run immediately, so that's why it's print 1, and then it will comes in set timeout, and then it will check like it is a callback, it is a scheduled as a macro task. Okay, that's why it will not print. Yeah, so it will not come in, like in set timeout. So this schedules a macro task to run after the current call stack and all macro tasks. It does not run now, just get placed in the macro task queue. So macro task, so it will come in promise. Okay. So I'll explain here now. We like in microtask in promise. So it will come in microtask. So in that microtask in promise dot resolve and is immediately resolved. So in that, that's why it print no. Firstly, then it will not come in like not print. Firstly, line number one print and then line number five. It will immediately print. Okay, and then it will move in here, and then it will like come in promise like in microtask promise dot resolve is immediately resolved. That dot then callback is scheduled as microtask to run after the current stack is empty. So that's why it will print three promise then microtask. Okay, and then this schedule like queue microtask this schedule another microtask like same priority as the then. So that's why it will print 4. And then next is yeah. So then it's like in queue microtask will print that means 4. And then after that it will moves on like set timeout and then print set timeout like console.log 2. Okay, so after the main stack finishes, like microtasks are drained first 3 and 4. Okay, 3, there is 3 and 4, and then the macrotasks to run. Okay, first they will check like this both. Okay, then set timeout will print like in 2. So first point like for something like you can remember like microtasks have higher priority than macrotask like it is important for remembering. So that's why I'm writing this. Microtasks have higher priority than macro task. And after each task script of or microtask, all microtasks are run before the next macrotask, and it helps ensure the that promise resolution happen predictably. Okay, and first it will always resolve like in promise because I already tell like it will microtask have higher priority than the macrotask. Microtask have higher priority, and in promise will come in microtask. So that's why first they will check always like they will give higher priority in promise. That's why it will check promise. Okay, that's all about like today topic in microtask versus macrotask queue. Like, in that I decrease the font size so it will come in one page so you can see like yeah. So that's all about its today topic for like microtask versus macrotask queue. Thank you. If you like this video, so please share and